Hey everyone, I am Mel from Cardstock Concoctions. Thank you guys for joining me for part 3 of our 8x8 basic memory box. Part 1 went through the supplies and the basic preparations. Part 2 went through the construction of our box here. This is what you should have at the end. That is the inside, the sides, the bottom, and the back. This is obviously the top. And part 3 will be going through decorating and adding in the ribbon stoppers that I created for the 12x12 wedding memory box that I created. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set this aside real quick. There are a few things that you're going to want to prepare. First and foremost, you're going to grab whatever ribbon matches your paper collection. You're going to want to cut about an 8-inch strip. And you're going to want 2 of those. Now, if your might want to take some glue, which is what I did. And I went ahead and put some glue on the ends to keep it from fraying and to give it a little extra strength. I did that on both of my pieces. And I went ahead and I set them aside. My ribbon is this, I guess it's like a Grosgain ribbon. It's from Stampin' Up. It was in the Christmas catalog maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. It actually works really well with my paper collection, so that's what I'm using. And it's really easy to get a brad through it. A couple of things I forgot to tell you guys what you were going to need in our first video. You're going to need 4 brads of whatever color and size that you wish to match your paper collection. I just grabbed these. They were in my stash. I have no idea where I got them. I apologize. You are also going to need, at this point in time, to find 6 pieces of pattern paper or DSP of your choosing. Today I'm using Love Amour. This is the same paper collection that I used for the 12x12 wedding memory album book. This is also going to be another wedding memory album book. I don't have much of it left, actually. I have like 3 12x12 sheets, and that's about it. You need about 6 pieces of paper, 6 pattern papers. And this is the leftovers of the 6 sheets that I picked. Again, you are going to have leftovers, but you know, depending on how you cut, I fussy cut mine. So I have a little bit less than you can if you don't fussy cut and you don't have to worry about directional patterns. Or if you have 2 sides that you like, things like that. Depending on what pattern paper you choose, you can probably get by with just over 4 sheets, just to let you know. Okay. Also, I went ahead and I inked all the edges of all of my papers already because nobody wants to see me ink my edges with just a stamping sponge and Stampin' Up's classic crumb cake ink. It's just, you know, what I used. It fit my paper collection really, really well. Black is always a great standard color. Any ink works. It's just what I had in my stash. So I went ahead and I cut all my pieces, as you can see here. And I will go through all the dimensions of what I used. You can always choose your own dimensions and how you want your project to look, but I will go through my dimensions as we go. Along with that, I chose, there we go. I'm going to pull out the top piece. I chose this piece as going to be the top of my box. Now, originally I said I was going to do 2 frames on my top of my box, and then I saw what paper I had to work with and where the beauty of what it was that I was working with, and I decided that I'm actually only going to go with 1 frame. So I cut 2, so I have a second one for another project. It's all ready to go. Not a big deal. I will use it eventually. Almost lastly, in order to cover your frame, it's a 4x4 frame. I need a piece of paper that's at least 5x5. Just to let you guys know, black cardstock, that's what I'm using, and I'll show you guys how to cover that. On my pages here, you guys may be able to actually see a little bit of the glitter and the shine. I have a Wink Stella black and gold brush pen that I used, and I just outlined it. I did not fill it in, I just outlined it. I also took 1 piece of the side and I went over the letters in it because they were in black, so I went ahead and ran over the letters again just to give them a little extra sparkle. I pre-did that because it had to dry for a few minutes. Okay, now there is one other tool that I forgot to show you guys. You are going to need a crocodile of some sort. You don't need one, you don't need mine particularly. You can use a handheld one, that's fine. It will work for your purposes. It will go in far enough and all that fun jazz. I've got the bigger one because that's just what I own. So you do want a crocodile or some sort of hole punching tool that can go through chipboard. Or regular punchers from like Stampin' Up! And memory keepers and stuff, those typically do not go through chipboard, just to let you know. But you will need this. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And today, adhesive-wise, let me grab my last adhesive. You can use kind of whatever adhesive you want. I am going to use my ATG gun because it's faster. So for speed's sake, I'm going to be using the ATG gun. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is, you're going to want to put everything on the inside of your box because you're going to want your pattern paper on the inside before you punch your holes, so the ones on the outside will cover up the ends of your brads. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put in the sides of the inside of my box and make sure I'm grabbing the right pages here. So I went ahead and I just picked a couple of patterns. I picked this pattern for each of the sides. I picked this pink pattern for the front. I put that in the wrong order. The front and the back you don't actually have to put in before you put in your brads, but I do suggest putting in your sides. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to run my adhesive. We're just going to put in all of our sides before I do this. Now, because you want this to last a while, you want a fairly permanent adhesive. If whichever adhesive is your favorite. I actually used glue on my first one. If you guys are a fan of your score tape, go ahead and do that. That is fine. If you're using Stampin' Up! Products, I don't suggest snail. I would suggest fast fuse. Glue is the most cost-effective. However, it's the slowest, but it does give you the most wiggle room. These pieces that go on the inside corners are 3 3/4 inches tall by 7.5 inches wide. Now, if you really do your math, it should have been, if you're doing a 1/4 inch border, it really should have only been about 7 5/8. However, I found out that made very tight fitting for mine, so I went for 7.5. You may want to try it at 7 5/8. I'm trying to get mine as straight as I can here. And then if you don't like it, go ahead and trim off 1/8 of an inch. I tried 7 5/8 to begin with. I didn't like it, so I went ahead and I trimmed it down again. So I am just centering these in the center of my panels here. There we go. Going to add adhesive to the next two. All 4 of my inside panels are 3 3/4 by 7.5. So you want to make sure you get all 4 of your inside panels. Well, you really only need 2 of them. So I put all 4 in just for efficiency's sake. And then the next one you're going to need to make sure you have in is your top piece here. And I decided my top piece was going to be this pattern here, and it's going to go right here. This piece that I'm going to put on the top inside of my lid measures 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. And this one, because it's going to get some extra wear and tear, and it's a much larger piece, I'm going to put some extra adhesive on it. Just going to line that up, hopefully straight and center. There we go. Okay. So now this is the point where we are going to start punching holes. And I know it's a little daunting, but here's how I decided to do this. I love the Tim Holtz ruler for this reason. If you take the centering portion of it, or I'm actually going to use the number side. I know this thing is 8 inches, and I know I want my brad to be in 1/2 inch from the edge. So because it's 8 inches, I can actually sit here and just find the 4-inch mark, which actually happens to be right here. And if I line up 1/2 inch, so I know where to mark, I know where to punch my hole. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Otherwise, measure in 4 inches from the top or bottom, or whichever one you choose. Go in 1/2 inch. Make sure these are nice and lined up. And you're gonna punch a hole. So as you can see, now I do the other ones on the outside here. It's a little bit easier for me. I'm gonna turn this upside down. However, you are on black cardstock sometimes, so keep that in mind. There we go. Make sure everything's nice and even. That's where I want it. Make that dot just a little bit bigger so we can actually see it. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side here. There we go. Another dot. So we're done with that part. Grab in your crocodile. I actually lift mine up. I follow the hole. I am using the 1/8 inch hole, not the 3/16 inch hole. There we go. There's one. You can lay this down flat. However, I noticed for myself that it didn't work so great. You may want to choose to put this on off the edge of the table, but you guys wouldn't be able to see that if I did that. These ones here are much easier because I can actually put them down. There we go. And my last hole. If you guys actually have one of these bigger ones, you can always move this up to 1/2 inch and then push it in all the way. That also works, just to let you guys know. All right, so now that I have that all nice and ready to go, now it's the time to actually add my ribbon. Now, I always double check to make sure that it's actually going to fit. Ugh. So with this ribbon here, I just fold it over just a smidgen. Just add a little bit of extra oomph to it, I guess. And when you have yours up here, you want it to sit right here and right here without really a whole lot of problems. So you want your lid to go at a 90-degree angle. And I found the best way to do that is do one side. Now, what I just did with my ribbon, you may not need to do with yours, depending on what type of ribbon you purchased or you have in your stash. I also always make sure that my tails of my brad can lay flat like this. You don't want it to go over too far into your black because otherwise your cards or your pattern paper will not cover it. Okay, so once you have the first one done, you want to come in here and you want to quickly do the second one. Just going to fold over and fold over again. Make sure I'm not going to be pulling this too tight. Yep. All right, I am going to use a paper piercer to try to like pierce through some of this, some of the thickness of it. Every once in a while, it doesn't always work for me. Just gives me a nice small hole for the brad to go through. Okay. There we go. Repeat the same process on the other side. Grabbing my paper piercer one more time, poking a hole. Push the brad through, the brad ends, I should say. Placing them through on the other side. And closing them up. Nice and tight. If your ribbon turns out to be a little bit too long for where you are placing it, just go ahead and fold it or cut it. I poked a hole through this. Now I don't know where I poked it. Let's try that again. There we go. Gotta make the hole so I can actually see it, don't I? Alrighty. And then on the last side, make sure you flatten. All right. That's how you get those in there. I got something on the inside of my box there. Don't know what it was. So there we go. I'm actually going to add the inside to this real quick. And then we will get started on the outside. All right, everyone, we are going to get ready to put on all the outside pieces. The first thing I would do would actually be to add a little bit of score tape on top of all of your brads, just to ensure that they're going to stay down. You can use the 1/2 inch, the 1/4 inch, the 3/8 of an inch, any of them that suit you and what you like. 3/4 was handy for me, so that's what I'm using. And again, you just put it over the top. Try not to push too hard because you're just going to kind of throw your box out of whack there. Just go ahead and do that on all 4 sides. All right. We are all ready to do the outside finishing. I always start with the bottom of my box. I picked a black, or mostly black, pattern paper with, the full saying was Just Married. This one, there we go. Whee! I actually fussy cut it to say married. I liked the black on the bottom because it actually, you know, it's going to be sitting on a surface. You want it to be all nice and pretty. This piece measures 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. Pull back in my box, make sure I know which side is forwards. I don't want it to be upside down. Line it up, stick it down. All right, we're now going to move on to, I'm going to do the sides, and then lastly I'll probably do the top because I'm just... Okay, so we have the bottom on now. I'm going to go ahead and put on all the sides. I'm going to set my box to the side here. I'm going to grab a few of these. You know what? I'm actually going to turn this paper over. My mat here got a little messy. All right, so I am just going to add the paper to my sides. All of my sides measure 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. Again, all my sides 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. That wasn't very straight. I do keep moving the mat around just a little bit now. Okay, this piece here is actually my front of my box. And if you ever overlap your glue, you are going to want to kind of fold it back, just so that you don't get extra sticking all around. Alrighty. Now I'm going to work on my sides. I'm actually going to glue both my sides and my back all at the same time, and then I'll apply. So I'll be back in just a second. All right, so I have applied tape to the back of all of my pieces. I'm going to use this piece. I'm going to attach it to the back of my box first. There we go. Now I'm going to do my sides. Make sure you remember to pull off the backing to your adhesive over your brads. If your paper is directional, always make sure your direction is properly up or down or to the side, whichever one it is supposed to be. You're going to want to make sure you kind of work your paper around your brad and make sure it sticks down nice and good. Well, depending on if you guys want to use proper English or not. All right, I'm going to do this on the same thing on my other side. All right. And again, work that down nice and tight around there. Okay. All right, now it's time to do the top of our box. The top of our box measures 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. And if you're me, you fussy cut your 7 3/4. A nice, heavy, it is the top of your box. I am going to pull back in the top of my box, or my box itself here. Make sure I pull off static cling the back of your adhesives over your brads, just like before. Carefully. I always lift mine when I'm working to try to work the paper around the brads, just because it's less pressure on the box itself. So there we go. Our box is 100% covered in pattern paper or DSP, depending on what you call it. So that's the top, that's the front, those are the sides, that's the bottom. You can also do your bottom in black cardstock if you guys would like, and that's the inside with our ribbon closures. And you'll notice, you know, if you have your ribbon angled correctly, it will automatically fall inside your box, not on the outside of your box. But it does keep it from just randomly flopping open. So all of our pattern paper is now in. It is time to do one of the last steps for this, and that is to cover our frame here with cardstock. Now, if you remember, I told you the frame itself was approximately 4 inches by 4 inches. Mine's 4 1/8 by 4 1/8. You're going to need a piece of cardstock that measures 5 by 5. Sorry. Piece of cardstock that measures 5 by 5. Pattern paper also works, just to let you guys know. Pattern paper also works. Now, this is the point where I take some of my score tape, tear tape, red line tape, and I kind of run it along the center of the frame here, all the way around. I want my paper to stick to my cardstock, or my frame to stick to my cardstock nice and well before I try to pull it up and around and maneuver it and all that kind of stuff. Quickly take and burnish your tape all the way around. Now, you can measure a 1/2 inch on each side if you so choose. I'm lazy and I don't do that. I eyeball it. Typically, I don't have too much of a problem. So eyeball at your own risk. I do eyeball mine. If not, grab out a ruler or your scoreboard or something like that to help you guys out. Nice and stuck down. I'm going to clear my workspace here real quick. Okay, this is where you guys are going to want to grab your ruler again. Now, you're going to want 1/2 inch from the inside edge of your frame. So you're going to want to measure 1/2 inch from the inside edge of your frame, and you're going to want to measure that out. Okay? Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys can actually see my pen line. However, I can see my pen line, so we're okay. Okay, I have measured 1/2 inch from the inside of my frame. I'm going to get my craft knife out and I'm going to cut out the inside of my frame. Okay, I have measured all the way around 1/2 inch from the inside of my frame. I'm going to grab out my craft knife here, and I'm actually just going to cut out that inner square. Just go ahead and pop that out. Now you can do this next part with scissors. You could do the first part with scissors too, actually. But you want to go from the corner of your frame to the corner of your chipboard or your cardstock right here. So just kind of draw a straight line, or as straight as you can, from the corner to the tip, and repeat that all the way around. Right. I'm going to grab a 1/4 inch score tape here. I'm going to run this along, preferably straight along my edges, but that didn't happen. There we go. And you're also going to want to run it along the inside of your frame. You can choose to do the inside of your frame before you cut it or after. I do it after. I just try to make sure I don't go over my cut lines. Otherwise, you have to go back in and recut them. Okay. Now, this is where you're going to want to start to fold your paper and train it over. All right. Okay, here we go. And then the next side. And we fold. Keep going all the way around doing this. Make sure you're folding it up and over nice and tight. And last side. Okay. Now you've done all 4 of the outside pieces. Now it's time to do the inside pieces. Nice and tight in there. And then you're also going to want to fold and crease in here. Same thing on all 4 sides. Keep repeating that process. All right. Now, if you're like me and you find out that your tape and how far it's going to go over may not actually run here, you may want to go back and add in some extra adhesive. And I run that just a little bit here on the frame itself, just as an extra tack down for the cardstock. I would not suggest making your inside square smaller than 1/2 inch from your frame edge. I know some people have tried it. I have tried it. I did 3/8 of an inch one time, and it, came up just a little bit too short, to be honest with you. So, because you don't always know that once you pull off the adhesive exactly what's going to happen. And extra adhesive is fine, not enough cardstock, not so much. Okay, everything has been scored. Now there's 2 ways of doing the edge frames. So you notice that once you fold this up, you're going to have a lot of extra bulk under there. And you can either remove it one of 2 ways. You can see that you have a little square that you made here. I don't know if you actually can see the square, but you create a little square when you fold and burnish over there. You can take your scissors very diligently, cut up the squares and remove it, and then fold it and fold it so it looks perfect and pretty. Or do what I do. If you have the perfect trim ruler, this is for mitering corners, by the way. If you have the perfect trim ruler, you can actually just miter your corners like you would on a normal scrapbook. And I use at least the 1.1875 section, if not the 0.25. I found the 0.25 sometimes is a little bit too big, but how you work it is you find what line you want or what measurement you want from the edge. You kind of line up your little square that's on your grid there. And then I just take my knife and carefully trim it off. This is how I do mine. You can choose to guess and check. You can measure it with a ruler out and then cut at an angle, whichever one you choose. The perfect trim ruler just does it for me. And since I invested in it because I make a lot of scrapbooks and things like that. So it's a multi-purpose tool for me. I don't think that was right. Yeah, that definitely wasn't right. Yeah, it'll be fine. Okay, it didn't cut through the first time, so I'm good to go. Okay, so now I'm ready to actually attach everything on my frame. I'm going to remove my cutting mat here. And I'm just going to slowly, I'm going to do the inside piece and then I'm going to do the outside piece. So I'm going to pull off the back of the adhesive to the inside, one side at a time. And just like before, I'm going to pull, 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 and stick down nice and tight. I'm going to then go back with my bone folder and burnish. I'm gonna pull off the second piece here because it's gonna stick there. I'm gonna make sure everything is nice and burnished down. Make sure it gets into that crease. It's going to give you more space for your photograph. All right, nice and tight in there. I'm going to go to the next one. Pull off the back of my adhesive. All right. And just as before, pull, 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 stick down. Make sure it's nice and flat. Okay. Now, I just noticed that I kind of covered up some of my extra adhesive on the very top flap of my cardstock here. I'm going to add an extra strip. Now, you can also add your adhesive to the outside edge of your cardstock if you would like. That does kind of take care of the excess that you have to possibly continue to use or create or add. I think by the time I got done there, add. Pull nice and tight. Using my bone folder. Make sure I get it nice and in that crease. And stick it down. And last side. I always do the inside pieces before I do the outside pieces. You can do the outside pieces before you do the inside pieces. I have not found where it's actually made a difference in the look of mine. All right, so once you have that all nice and burnished down, pull off this last piece of backing to the adhesive. Okay. And now I'm going to start doing the top, the outside of my frame. Fold, stick, burnish. Fold, stick, oops, that piece down in there, and burnish. Now I like to miter my corners because it gives me a nice, deep, tight corner. All right, I like to miter my corners because it gives me a nice, deep, tight corner. Sometimes I do have to tuck my corner in just a little bit. But fold up, turn, and stick. And don't forget to burnish. Burnishing is actually what sticks your cardstock into your tape. Okay. I'm going to tuck this corner as well, just to be on the safe side, as well as this side. Okay. Fold it up and over and burnish it down. Get it really nice and deep into those corners. All right, so once you have everything stuck, you can always go back with your bone folder and square off the edge of all of your sides. Okay. Beautiful. Now, lastly, I do take another set of 1/4 inch score tape and I apply it just to where the raised portion of our frame was. So just to that raised portion. Do not go on all 4 sides. A, it will not stick down. B, you will not be able to get your picture in there. All right. As you can see, I just did those on top of those 1/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch strips that we put on the back of our frame. That's the only place that I added the adhesive. I wanted to make sure I've got an open spot up here or to the side or however you attach your frame for it to be attached. All right, so we have all that. I pulled the back of the adhesive off and I think I'm going to set it alrighty. There we go. I had a couple of little adhesive bumps on the outside of that paper. I just took a Xyron adhesive remover and removed those. Now at this point in time, you can choose how you want to continue to decorate. I think I'm going to go grab a few flowers probably I know the person I'm giving it to enjoys flowers, so I will try flowers first. So I will be right back with those and we will finish up. All right, everyone, I'm back. I like all of my stuff to be fairly clean and simple. If you like yours very massively blinged up, I say go for it. But I decided to use the Kaiser Scrapbook flowers. They're paper flowers. And this is going to be very similar to the first one of these that I made. Same paper, same, reason for making it, I guess. So, cuts down on my thinking process. Let's see what I come up with and what I like this time around. You guys can see which one I test everything on. I've tried inking these. I've tried Winkastelling these. Done quite a bit to these flowers before. All right, I know there's 2 flowers in here. The question is, can I get them apart? Yeah, maybe they're gonna live together. I think I'm gonna actually do the 6, but I'm gonna do on the side there. Now the next question is, am I gonna put bling in the center of them? The extra flowers back. I don't think I'm gonna put Winkastella on them this time. I don't wanna do everything the same, So these flowers actually, I don't know where I got them from, but I found them in my stash. And they actually look really cute in the inside centers there. But I don't know if I want to do that, or I have some really large bling that might look good in the centers too. You know what? I think I'm actually going to use the bling this time. Again, just for something slightly different. So here's what I'm going to do. Put the box to the side just a little bit here. Make sure I grab my glue dots. Again, the top of the box is completely up to you. Your paper selection's obviously completely up to you. But I am going to... These are some really large bling. And again, I don't know where I got the bling from. I'll put the bling on first. And I used 3, or groups of 3. Actually liking the look of the bling. The bling looks really nice. I also very much enjoyed the look of the flower. That was really cool. All right. I'm going to use glue dots for these paper flowers. I have some bigger ones floating around, but I don't know where the glue dots are, so. Now, my flowers, I'm actually offsetting the petals so they're not right on top of each other, and it gives it a slightly fuller, more dimensional look. If I can actually do this without messing it up. There we go. Just going to do that all the way, all 3 of these. I am giving them a good press just to make sure that the glue dots stick to each other, or to stick to both sides of the paper. And there we go. Now on the backs, to stick them to the frame, I'm actually going to use 2 glue dots just to reinforce the stick, I guess is going to be the word. And just going to give it a good press. Do the next one. Kind of going to overlap the flowers just a little bit. And again, I'm going to give it a good press down. And the last one here. Oops. And gotta tuck this one in here as well. There we go. I think I very much like that, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to stop decorating there. That's typically a good place. So this is part 3 of my 8x8 memory box, basic memory box. I really should call it basic memory box. If you enjoyed part 3, it covered all of the decorations, as well as it covered the inside application of the ribbon stoppers, as well as all the decorations, and as always, the frame for the top. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and leave me a comment and I will get back to you guys as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe. I would love to see you guys come back and take a look at the final review. So talk to you guys later. Bye.